Eilish, thank you for overcoming the obstacles of getting online in Font Romeu. The reality of being a full-time athlete and traveling the world, I guess, yeah, which we'll come on to later. So Eilish's time is precious, as we know. She's got a very important date coming up in 3 or 4 weeks' time, and she has a very busy lifestyle to keep. So I basically, in the next 25 minutes, half an hour, have about 10 little topics I just want to cover. A lot of Eilish's life is very well documented elsewhere, so I don't want to go over too much old ground. In fact, I'm going to invite Eilish. If I say anything you think, if I give you a question that is boring, you tell me, okay? And we'll move on to the next one, all right?
I'm sure it'll be fine. I trust you. I trust you.
Anyway, I was saying as we were waiting for you that I have memories of you running cross country and track as a little girl. And I think, Sadeva, you have a little slide there of, do you have that slide there, Dava? Yes. Oh, do you recognize this lady?
So that was one of my first sort of like big cross country races, because it was against the whole of the UK and not just Scotland. And I remember, honestly, this was like, it's one of my first memories really of having like a big competition like that and feeling nervous. I'm under 13 there in that picture. So, wow. Or maybe first year under 15. I think I was under 13. So yeah, very, very young.
And as an athlete, as most coaches will say, you had the luck to choose your parents very well. Like many of our other sort of Scottish track stars like Lindsay and Jake, both your parents were international athletes, so you chose the right gene pool, as it were. One thing I noticed looking at your Power 10, when you were a youngster, you didn't do a lot of cross country. A lot of track, certainly. Did you have an aversion to cross country? Did you just not like getting cold, or why didn't you do so much cross country?
I actually did loads of cross country as a kid, so I'm not sure. Maybe they're just not all on Power 10. Maybe I'm that old that it no longer records under 13 age. But I mean, as a kid, under 13, under 15 especially, yes. I mean, we travelled the length and breadth of Scotland every weekend to do the East District Leagues and the Scottish cross country championships, schools, Scottish schools, even British schools cross country I did as well. So I mean, I did my fair share of cross country as a kid. I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe just the results aren't all up there for some reason. I actually did a lot more cross country than I did track, certainly as a kid. But unfortunately, as I got older, I just seemed to get a lot of injuries. And to be honest, I started when I went through puberty and started growing. I mean, I took quite a big growth spurt, and I mean, I'm 5'10" now, but I definitely shot up when I was around maybe 17 years old. And it just took all my energy. And in all honesty, I went to cross country and just felt like I was performing so badly. And even my track races weren't very good either. I just was really, really struggling. And for me, I could get around a track, but I wasn't really enjoying the cross country. And I seemed to just be very unstable and not strong enough, I suppose, for that event. I then broke my foot in 2011, and that completely wrote off all cross country from then. So I haven't set foot on a cross country now for a long, long time. I have 5 screws and a metal plate in my left foot now from 2 surgeries. And so, yes, sadly, cross country is, my cross country days are long gone, but I'll be honest, I don't particularly miss it. I'm not going to lie. It was good. It was really good fun as a kid. And of course, I mean, when you're a kid, you're running, it was probably a mile and a half. So that's good fun. But at my age now, I mean, as a senior, it's 10K, sometimes 12K. So it's a whole hard, long slog, certainly as a senior athlete. But sadly, it's just too much risk with the terrain now on my ankle.
Of course. And you mentioned as you were growing up, you had problems with injuries and growing very fast. In a short time scale, for parents on this call or for any youngsters on this call, when you're going through a period as you're growing up, what's the best advice you can give to someone just to stick at it and not give up? Because there is quite a high rate of dropouts in the later teens in the athletics world, as you know. So what's your secret of how you kept going through all those ups and downs?
Do you know what, in all honesty, it was my running club, and I'd advise every single kid up and down the country to join a running club, because it was really difficult. I'd gone from being quite successful as a under 13, under 15, and then I just hit a plateau and just was not improving at all. And I suppose I did lose a love for competition, because it's not so much fun when you're going into a race and you're running slower than you did when you were 15 years old and you're now 17, 18. So for me, I just sort of maybe backed off of the competition a little bit, but I still trained every single week religiously with my club. And I think having the group of friends that I'd created at the club were honestly the real reason I kept going. I kept turning up every Tuesday, every Thursday, every Saturday, because my friends were there. That was my social scene. And that's where, if I missed a training session, you missed all the gossip of what was happening throughout the week. So it really was just that sort of fun side of it. I kept the fun side there. And yes, I sort of took a little bit of a step away from the competitive side, but I think it really helped because I just enjoyed it. I still love to run and to train and to push myself. I was still able to do that. And then certainly I think it helped having my mum and dad just never, ever pushed it either. If I didn't want to do a competition, or if I wanted to go to university and be a student like everyone else, or go to my friends and stay overnight and just be a typical teenager, they allowed me to do that. It wasn't like they said, you have to come to training, you have to eat like this, and you have to live like a professional athlete. I think because they allowed me to make my own decisions, I sort of continued that passion and love for the sport. And when I was 21, that's when it really switched. And I thought, do you know what? I don't want this to be a hobby now anymore. I want this to really be a career, and let's really give it everything I can to try and become a professional athlete. So I'd say, yeah, advice would be get to a club, a good social club where you know there's going to be loads of other youngsters your age and doing your event. And yeah, just to continue doing something you love. I think, as I said, I was about to say have parents that allow you to be flexible, but I can't enforce that, unfortunately. But yeah, just be supported by the right people, I think, is important.
Good. Which seamlessly brings me on to how you made the decision to become a full-time athlete. On to question 4 already. We're doing well. Was there any sort of, you mentioned there was that you decided you wanted to be a full-time athlete. Was there any sort of, did you have any ideas to follow any other career paths before that, or you just suddenly realized, hey, I'm going to just give this a go for a few years and just see where it takes me?
Yeah, so I studied maths and accountancy at university, so something completely different to sport. And it was a conscious decision because, again, I was going through a bit of a period where I was growing and I just wasn't sure how long I would love the sport for. So I wanted to have like another aspect of my life, something that wasn't sport related, that if I decided one day I didn't want to run anymore, I had something to fall back on. So I was good at maths at school. I enjoyed it. So it felt like a natural sort of avenue to take at university. I haven't used that at all since I've left university. So I'm sure one day I'll go back, but I feel like I've just lost those all those years I spent studying, but I have something there. So yeah, in the future, it's definitely maybe something I'll come back to, but I just love the sport. So I couldn't really see myself. I feel like I'd stay in it in some capacity, whether it's coaching, whether it's as an agent, helping young kids find competitions or something like that. I think I'd like to stay in it. But yeah, that was what I studied.
Yeah. And something a lot of youngsters and even a lot of people my age now sort of think, we have this, the life of being a full-time athlete seems very glamorous, and I'm sure it is in a lot of ways, but can you just say a bit about what the reality of being a full-time athlete is? I mean, like me, I come into work, I open the door, I open the shop, and I've got a 9-to-5 sort of existence. Your life cannot be quite 9 to 5, I'm sure.
No, it's it's obviously changed a lot over the years as I've got older, and I suppose now we're in a position where we can be a lot more flexible with regards to where we train, and we do spend a lot of time of the year at altitude. I just feel it helps me. I feel it helps my performance. I feel stronger from it. Obviously, the downside of that is that you very rarely get to see family or friends. I'd say in the last year, obviously with COVID, that's been exaggerated even further. I haven't seen friends and family now. And I don't know, the last time I saw my younger brothers and stuff was probably almost 2 Christmases ago. So it's a lot of communication via WhatsApp. And yeah, I'd say, to be honest, that's one of the hardest parts for me, I think, being detached from just that normal sort of everyday life where you see your friends or you see your family. It's very restrictive in that sense. But I think it's again, my family are very aware. My mum and dad are obviously very sporty themselves. They've been through it all themselves. They know exactly what it takes to reach this sort of elite level. I'm very lucky that my boyfriend Michael is also a professional athlete. He's been to 2 Olympics. You've been 3. 3. Oops, there we go. I almost got that wrong. He's been to 3 Olympic Games. And so again, like I have a partner who fully understands that this is the job. And so again, he has to make the same sacrifices as me. And we're very fortunate now that we're in a position where we can actually travel together. It used to be that we would spend months and months apart, and that is really difficult too. So now I feel very, very fortunate that I am in a position where we can travel together, and at least we have someone there to help and to support. But it's a lot of, I mean, we're very fortunate we get to travel the world, but sadly you don't quite get to see the world. It's a lot of time in hotel rooms, even more so now with COVID restrictions. It's just crazy. I mean, I had someone message me saying, "Oh, you're so lucky you get to go to Florence, Italy for the Diamond League." And I saw nothing other than the airport, my hotel room, and the track. And that was literally it. Like, you're not allowed out, but it's just the way it is at the moment. And sadly, I think Japan will be the same. It's somewhere that I'd love to go and visit as a tourist, but of course, yeah, I'm going to have to maybe come back. It gives me an excuse to come back another year on my holidays, my 2-week holiday at the end of the year, and sightsee. But I think it's going to be a very, very different games, and not quite the glamorized view that I think people have of elite athletes.
Sure. We'll come on to Tokyo in a few questions' time, but one other question I had, you see people like Andy Murray and Djokovic, the top tennis players, and obviously it's apparent in professional footballers that there's a big team environment around them. Like Andy and Novak, they build a sort of team around them. How does that work with someone like you as a professional athlete? Obviously you have Michael as a great support in the background, and your mum obviously coaching you. But do you have other people like physios and nutritionists you tap into as well?
So I actually don't. I think it's quite unusual to not have a big support team, but yeah, I suppose I used to have a really good physio in Manchester that I used to see, but then when the pandemic hit, obviously that was just completely cut off. He couldn't work. He wasn't allowed to work at all. And so I suppose I just realized I had to be a little bit more self-sufficient with regards to making sure that I'm foam rolling, I'm stretching, I'm recovering as much as I can. Michael does a lot of my massage now. So to be honest, our team it was never big. It was really my mom, Michael, and my physio, Chris Brama from back home, who is brilliant. He's a fantastic physio. But now really it is just me and Michael.
Yeah.
And then, my mom doing the coaching from afar. She's actually here just now, randomly. She's, as a pure coincidence, for her work. She's actually in France for a month. Okay. So she drove up here 6 hours to just take my session, and has got to drive back down 6 hours again to start work again. So I feel very grateful that she's committed to doing that. But again, we hadn't seen each other for so long. She just felt like it would be nice, whilst we're in the same country for once, to see each other. So yeah, it's a very small team. I'm very lucky. Obviously, my dad's a professional athlete as well, so he's always there at the end of the phone to give advice too. But honestly, we do everything ourselves. Like, Michael really is literally a one-man band, to be honest. He's doing all the cooking, he's massaging, he's pacing me on the bike, he's timing. So yeah, I feel very, very fortunate, obviously, to have Michael with me all the time, but it really is just the 3 of us. And it works really well. So why change a format that seems to be good?
Exactly. So Team McColgan is quite a compact little unit, but obviously it's it's working. It's working for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think that's why a lot of athletes have really struggled during the pandemic, because they haven't been able to access a physio, and they haven't maybe been able to see their nutritionist or their psychologist or their physiologist. But to be honest, nothing has really changed for us. Like, we've been able to crack on and continue with our training as best as we can without all those extra resources. And I think that's why I've been able to touch wood so far, have some good performances this year, and training has been going really well. It's going better than ever before. So I think, to me, it's a bit of a, I suppose it's proved that what we do is working. So we're just going to stick with it for now.
Yeah. And on the psychological side of things, because obviously that fascinates a lot of runners, and just how they bring out the best in themselves, and how over a long period of time you have to stay focused. Yeah, like day after day after day, you're getting up with that little goal of, I don't know whether you have the date of the Olympic final on your cornflakes packet or any little games like that you play, but how do you, as an athlete or as a team, just keep focused day to day, week to week, just with the goal in mind, Olympic final, Olympic final?
Do you know, I think as athletes, we're very lucky that every single year we have another competition. So even if you say you miss the Olympic Games, there'll be a World Champs next year, a Commonwealth Games, a Europeans. Like, there's always a target to aim for. And the best thing about running as well is that everyone has their own personal best. So it doesn't matter if you're an Olympic athlete or you're just starting out for the first time, you will have a time for your 5K, for your 10K, whatever distance you do. And to be honest, that is enough for me to be motivated every day, because I want to just get faster. It's not so much that I'm motivated by medals, or I suppose making teams. I still want to compete for Team GB, but I think for me, it's always about how much can I push my body and how fast can I go. So there's always something for me to just constantly be aiming for personally. Even when the champs were sort of taken away last year, everyone was saying, oh, how do you stay motivated to get up when it's raining outside or the weather's bad? But I suppose I'm still able to run. Like, I'm very fortunate that my sport, I was able to still go outdoors and continue running every day. So I'm able to do something I love and I'm passionate about. So if I can continue trying to work on different things in training to make sure that my 5K speed is good. But this year we really introduced 10K strength up to half marathon. And for me, that was enough to keep myself motivated, knowing that eventually a race would appear and we'd eventually have some sort of competition to aim for. And it feels now, I feel so fortunate that the Olympics is going ahead, like it is actually going to happen now. So it's much easier to stay motivated when you know that end goal is quickly appearing.
Getting very close, yeah. And
yeah.
You're certainly on a purple patch just now, looking into 2021. I mean, the last month, I mean, it's well documented for people who look out there. I mean, it seems crazy, but also very inspiring at the same time, that you've actually qualified for 3 Olympic disciplines, and you're only doing 2, and it's all just happened in such a short space of time. I mean, has there been like a plan, obviously, to peak for the Olympics, but was it a plan even at the start of the year to try and qualify for the 5 and the 10K for Tokyo?
Yeah, do you know, the 10K was always my main goal.
Okay.
We had decided that over the last couple of years. I was actually meant to do my first half marathon this year, and then last year, and then go into 10K. And that was really the sort of plan that we had. But of course, with COVID, my half marathons were all cancelled. So I just felt I had that extra strength this year for the 10K. So that's why it was my main priority. And then as the summer season came around, it was more apparent that there was going to be a lot of 1500s and nothing else. So honestly, it was a sort of split decision of what do we do here? Do I just sit at home, or do I throw myself into these 1500s and just see if I can get some good speed work in? Yes. And that's what we did. And so it's difficult when you've gone from half marathon training and then sort of 10K to then just get thrown into the 15s. But I think it really helped. And then my 5K work sort of knitted together in the middle. I felt like it was going really well. So yeah, we decided to I had a go at the World Challenge back in Eugene. It was my first. I had a 5K actually. It didn't go very well. I dropped out of just with the jet lag. I just really struggled. But I was determined. I felt in really good 5K shape. So we went to the World Challenge in Eugene. But sadly, I ended up running the last 3K totally on my own. And I ran 14:52 as an opener, which gave me a little bit of confidence. I know that people see 14:52 the time, but they don't see the race unfold and they don't know how you felt or what training you've done leading into that. So I felt really confident I could run a big PB this year if I could get the right race. And so, there's just no 5,000 meters anymore in the Diamond League. They've sort of removed them and replaced them with mainly 1500s and a couple of 3Ks. So Oslo the other day was honestly the first opportunity I would have, and maybe the only opportunity I'll have all year to run a fast 5K other than at the Olympic Games. So I'm so glad I did it. We were a little bit unsure because we wanted to train now for Tokyo, but I'm obviously over the moon that I did it. And again, it's given me a little bit of confidence now to know that the 5 and 10, I have that strength there from all the training we've done from November, December time, right the way through. I have the strength, far more strength than I've ever had before. So I think it's given me a confidence now to feel comfortable doing both events. And I think there's 2 days between the heat and final of the 5 and then 4 days between the 10K. So there's a lot of girls doing both. It's not just me. Obviously, Jess Judd from the UK is doing both. Helen Obiri from the Kenyan team. A lot of the Canadians, Americans, Australians. There's a lot of people that will be doing both.
A little Dutch lady as well. Yes, Miss Hassan, I think, is doing both.
Well, she's meant to be doing 3 events, I read. Yes. So that's absolutely madness. But we'll see if she does that. I feel like she won't do 3.
Yeah. Getting back to the 5K on Friday night. So Dave, have you got the clip ready there? When we had our little test call on Saturday, we were jokingly talking about getting reception in Font-Romeu, and Michael was looking for football in any language. He could only find Spanish channels to watch the football on. Well, when I looked for your 5K on late Thursday night, the first one I found was a little clip here we're about to see. And the commentators are rather interesting. Okay, let's play the video. And you can talk us through this.
Junto con Tim Hutchins deben de estar, vamos, emocionadísimos con Eilish McColgan, porque haciendo un carrerón impresionante.
Un carrerón terrible, terrible.
You can talk us through this, Eilish, if you want.
Vamos a ver una muy buena marca, ¿eh? Vamos a ver una muy buena marca, una marca muy interesante.
Le va bien a Obiri que Kike Boy le haya dado el relevo.
Sin duda alguna le está dando un respiro y bueno, pues la está ayudando al fin y al cabo en...
I suppose at this point I felt like for me, even my mum and Michael had said to me, look, if you get to a K to go and you're with the sort of like you're with those top girls, you're with that top group, you're going to run what we think you can run. We think you can get close to that British record or even break it. So, to be honest, by the time I got to this point, I just thought I'm still here. And for me, that's the hardest part, is getting to the last 800 or K and having not already been dropped. So, again, I felt dead strong. I just wanted to make sure that the last K I was up in a good position. To be honest, I probably should have went a little bit earlier. I probably should have went 600 or 800 to go because I felt really strong, but I think my confidence is still to catch up with my performances at the moment. And to be honest, I got to a lap to go and thought, oh my God, that's Helen Obiri right next to me. And to be honest, I shouldn't really be thinking like that, Jim, and I really should be thinking about, right, we feel good here, so let's try and I mean, I'm never going to out sprint these girls, so it's important for me to probably go a little bit earlier and to have a longer run in. But it was one of the first races I had at this level of competition. I haven't had it this year at all. As I said, the Diamond Leagues are being sort of changed or cancelled or postponed. And yes, I've raced the girls at 1500, but this is the event that I want to do. So it was different just having those world-class athletes to sort of drag me along. As I said, I just haven't had that level of competition. So I do, if I had a few more races, I think I'd be more confident to really go a little bit earlier and really push myself and see how quick we can go. But I'm still really happy with that performance. I still ran a 63 maybe last lap, which to be honest is not far off what I would probably just do for one lap anyway. So I definitely feel that strength is there. And I'd love to give it another go. I'd love to have another opportunity, hopefully end of season, to see how much faster I could go with a little bit of a faster pace earlier on.
Well, let's hope that opportunity is there, certainly, yeah, because obviously it gives you a lot of confidence going into Tokyo. Yeah. On to almost my last question, actually, before we open up to question and answers. Beyond Tokyo, obviously we wish you well, but beyond Tokyo, obviously you mentioned half marathon. As someone who's been involved in marathon and ultras for more years than I care to remember, and a lot of friends I talk with is when is Eilish going to run a marathon? Do you have that in your calendar yet for sort of 2023, 2024, or it's still
it was actually meant to be this year. So my first marathon was meant to be in 2021.
Okay.
But of course, again, with the pandemic, I wanted to have a 10K global champs because I've never done it before. I've done a 5K, I've done the steeplechase, but yeah, I've never had a 10K at a global, like a major champ. So it sort of shifted everything a year later, and I've never even run a half. Like I wanted to have a half marathon and then go into my marathon, but again, it's just everything's been so delayed. So the priority this year is obviously to get through the Olympics. I'll have some end of season track races. I'd love to have a pop at the 3K British record on the track. Maybe a 5K if they have one. I feel like it'll mostly be 3Ks at the end of season. I don't think they'll have a 5. They certainly won't have a 10. And then after that, I'd love to do my first half marathon, but it's just keeping my fingers crossed that they're going to go ahead. Maybe something like the Great North Run. That's such an iconic event. I'd love to have a go at that and see what I could run over the half distance. And then it's looking towards a marathon in 2021. So it's 2022, sorry, my years. So it's coming soon. Again, it's a shame. I feel like I'd like another couple of races on the track because I feel like that I still feel I could go faster, but I think if anything is I've been taught this year is certainly that the strength work that I did for the half marathon that I was preparing for that got cancelled has helped my track work as well. So I'd like to think that my half would go well and then I can see how the marathon goes. Certainly for Paris 2024, all intentions will be on making that Olympic team for the marathon. But I think the 10K still complements that. So you definitely won't see me disappearing from the track. I'll still be on the track. I just definitely won't be doing any more 1500s and getting thrown into those. I'll be sticking to 10K and upwards for sure.
And in terms of just backtracking to training a little bit, obviously within Team McColgan, you've also got your various sponsors around you. Obviously, ASICS are your footwear sponsor, and you have Polar in the background. How important is technology to you with your training and being able to analyze it? Or maybe you don't analyze it. Maybe Michael does all the analyzing, or your mum does all the analyzing, and you just hand over the. Do you actually look at all the data yourself for feedback, or do you just rely on others to be able to do that so you can rest up?
Yeah, so I look at it all myself. I just like I like being in control of. Yeah. I suppose my own training, my own body, how I feel day to day. For me, heart rate is something that's really important. So I'd say that's something that I use pretty much daily. I use it for all my easy runs. I do a lot of cross training with my program. So again, I know exactly which heart rate zones I should be in order to sort of maintain fitness, but without pushing too hard, or at the same time, just dilly-dallying and wasting an hour on the bike. Do you know what I mean? I make sure that session works for me.
Yes.
Another thing, sort of stats that I'm obviously like distance and pace and all those sort of normal runner things, but I'm absolutely obsessed with sleep stats as well. I feel like Vantage, I wear the V2 at the moment, so this one, but quite a lot of the Polar watches have the sleep stat information, but I just find that it always correlates quite well with how I think I feel anyway. So it's quite nice when you're backed up by data and science as well. So again, that's been a huge thing that we've implemented over the last couple of years, is just making sure that I am not overdoing things. If I've had a couple of days, for example, like my race in Oslo, I never sleep after racing because I've had caffeine, and I'm very sensitive to caffeine. But the stats on my watch are just awful. awful. Like I go from having pretty good night's sleeps and like recovery stats are like +10 or +8, and it just goes the other way. And it goes straight into the red. So for me, I know then for the next couple of days, I have to sort of monitor that. So monitor my heart rate overnight to know if it's always a good indicator if I'm coming down sick or I just need an extra day. So we actually took an extra day there just from the travel and from coming back up to Font-Romeu to give myself one extra day for my session today. And it makes a difference. Instead of being strict on, oh, I need to train Tuesday because it's my track day, or I need to train Saturday because that's the session that my coach sets. I'm obviously very fortunate that I can be flexible with that. I'm a full-time athlete, so I can train any day of the week. And I think that makes a big difference too. We're not now reliant on just being set on these days. We'll look at the stats, we'll look at the recovery stats, and we'll work out, do we need to move something? Do we need to tweak something? And I think it's just allowed me to be far more consistent than I've ever been before. Usually I would get sick all the time because I would just push. If my mum set a training session, I would have to do it on that day. Even if I woke up and I just had no sleep that night and my heart rate was sky high, I would still go and do the session just because it was there and it was on my program. So I've definitely taken a lot more responsibility now to, I suppose, the fact I'm a professional athlete. This is my full-time job. I need to make sure that I am looking at not just the running side of things. I'm looking at sleep, I'm looking at recovery, I'm looking at heart rate, and all of those things tied together. And then with regards to my mum, I suppose I always message her with my heart rate after every run. That's sort of just something that she tracks. She doesn't track all my sleep and stuff. That's up to me to feed back to her. She's far too bored with that information. But again, it's communication between the two. If I say to her, look, I've woke up, my heart rate is 10 beats higher, she'll say, right, we're not doing that today, we're switching it. So it relies on communication between me and my mum, but overall it's certainly me that is looking at that and feeding that back to them.
Yeah, and obviously that's important for you as an elite athlete, but for mere mortals like me or people doing just park runs or the local 10Ks, if they're having a bad day or if they're using whatever device they have and their heart rate is high, would you advise them just to sort of adapt their week accordingly?
Yeah, definitely, because it's the first indicator that you're either overtraining, or it could be an indicator that you're just coming down with a cold. You could be coming down with a bit of a sore throat, a sore head, and the heart rate is like the best indicator of being able to tell you before that happens. So the last thing you want to do is go out for a really hard session, because you're lowering the immune system even more, you're stressing the body even more, and you're just going to end up being far more fatigued than if you just go, actually, let's just take a day off today, let's see how we feel tomorrow, and then you'll bounce back faster too. So for me, it's the most sensible way to do it. I know it's frustrating because nobody likes to take a day off and everyone likes to stick to their schedule, but I've certainly found that more of a focus on my recovery has just allowed me to be far more consistent. I honestly can't think of a day where I've been forced to take a day off through injury or illness this year, other than the vaccine. Actually, I had to take some days off around the vaccine that I had. But other than that, I mean, honestly, I've been so consistent, where in previous years I would be so sick coming off a flight, and then I'd have to take 4 days here, and then I'd pick up a little bit of a niggle and I'd take another 3 days here. It was never anything big, but those days all start to add up. So yeah, I would definitely say it's important, not just for elite athletes, obviously it's my job, but if you have the time and energy to focus on those small things, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. And away from training, obviously you also have Aftershocks as one of your partners as well. Do you have your own personal playlist you like to use when you're out running?
Yeah, I'm actually quite...
You can share it with us if you want to, but you don't have to.
I know, I'm honestly, I'm quite open with regards to what music I listen to. It's always quite varied. It is literally everything. Like, honestly, everything is on there. But I just find, again, it's a way to switch off a little bit, because with running being my full-time job, it's very easy to just be thinking about it 24/7. Like, it can become quite intense, certainly in the lead up to competitions. So I find that a lot of people say, oh, but I don't like running with music. But for me, that is the way I switch off and relax. Like, I enjoy it. And I like the fact that I can listen to music, but also feel safe when I'm outside too. Certainly when I'm in a location where I've maybe never been before, it's open ear. So I can hear what is going on around me, which is always really important. A playlist, it's not a set playlist, that's for sure, but again, I use it the same sort of set songs that I like to warm up from on race day. So it starts off quite mellow, it's quite chilled out, just because when I turn up for a race, I want to relax, I want to be not thinking too much about the competition, but the songs, yeah, definitely ramp up in sort of, I can't think of the word, what's the word, beat? I don't know the specific word for it. Tempo, there we go, Michael saved me. It certainly speeds up in tempo as you get towards race, because you want to be a bit more pumped up and hyped up, and that's my way of just getting ready for a competition. I always have them on me on race day. Obviously I can't wear them in a race, so I don't train with them in training. I find it's important, obviously I listen to splits and what Michael's saying to me and what my coach is saying and the times that I'm running. But on my easy days, that's my relaxation, the way I switch off. And then for race day, it's how I suppose switch on. It's the two ways, I suppose, that I use the headphones for training.
Sure. Yeah. So time is pressing on. Gosh, I can't believe you've been talking this long, but I just want to throw it open now. If anyone wants to put any questions in the chat room to ask Eilish, we'll just have a few minutes with some question and answers before we...
No worries.
Yeah. Anyone got any questions there? While people are typing in, I'll just ask one. In your training schedule, obviously, do you have a key must-do sessions like every week or every sort of 10 days where you can really gauge your progress on a regular basis?
We definitely repeat sessions. It's something that we do literally from when I start training in November right the way through to now. We'll always repeat sessions, and it just gives me an indicator of how things have progressed and moved on. I'm trying to think of one session that I do that sort of I think gives me specific. Yeah, something probably very race specific would be when I do 10 by a K off of a minute. I suppose it's just effectively splitting down the full 10K into chunks, but taking a short recovery. I usually find that if I can, whatever I can run within that session, usually I can actually knit together in a race. So it sounds a little bit strange because you're taking a minute, you think, oh, you should be able to run not as fast on race day, but I suppose once you've tapered down, once you've backed off the mileage a little bit as well, it's far easier to knit that together. So I'd say 10 by 1,000 meters is always something that I have quite frequently in the schedule from the winter, and even in the summer as well. I keep it in there as one of my like strength sessions. It's amazing the difference from the times that I would run in the winter to the times that I run in the summer as well. It just speeds up massively. Which always gives me a lot of confidence too, because then I can look back at my training diaries and go, oh, I used to run those in 3:10 and now I'm running them in sub 3s. Do you know what I mean? It gives you that confidence that you know that training is heading in the right direction. Yeah. So I like that. I know certain athletes maybe don't like to compare themselves to what they previously done, but I am certainly an athlete that, I mean, I have training diaries. I have everything on Polar Flow for the last 6 years. So I mean, wow. I can scroll right through and see exactly what sessions I've done and what works and what doesn't work and what I should be running at this time of year if I want to run PBs. And I like it. That's just the way my brain works.
We've got a question I think from Lewis Walker. I think if there's a Lewis, I think I know, it's a coach up in the northeast of Scotland. You've answered some of that because he's asking how you blend a mix of training. How do you blend a mix of training that allows you to run a 4-minute 1500 and a 31-minute 10K? Do you have periodization training, or do you maintain the same kind of training all year round, is what Lewis is asking.
In all honesty, I don't know how I've ran 4 minutes for 1500 because I don't have any real speed work in my program. For me, a speed work session would be something like 10 300s off of maybe a minute recovery. And I do that probably once before every competition I do. So whether it's a 10K I go into or a 5K or even a 15. So I'll do it several times throughout the season, but that really is that's my like speed work session. And I honestly, I surprise myself with the 1500 because I think it just comes from strength. In all honesty, I have to run it I have to run it eyeballs out from like the first 100 meters. I feel like I'm flat out. And so I suppose that's why I would never go to an Olympic Games in 1500, because I have no change of pace. Like I'm not someone that is going to be able to run a sub 60 last lap. Like I have to be 63 point, 63 point, 63 point for every single lap. So it does come from more of a strength based. I'd say the difference from winter to summer this year is that we've actually included, in the past, I would always do long reps, short recovery in the winter, and then shorter reps in the summer with longer recovery. So you're trying to generate more speed, more quality. But this year we actually included a lot of our faster sessions. Like I would do maybe, I don't know, 5 by a K or something in the summer. In the winter, I would do 10, and in the summer, I would do 5. But actually this year we did quite a few times. We put the 5 by a K in the winter and forced myself to try and run a little bit quicker. And it was horrible. I'm not gonna lie, I had some horrible sessions in the winter because I just wasn't used to running at that speed. I just hadn't done it, and I hadn't done it since the summer.
Wow.
But actually then that transition into this summer has been so much easier because I've kept in touch with running sort of 70-second pace. In the past, I would be running 75 to 78 pace all winter. And then I'd come to the summer and try to run 68 to 70, and it would be tough, and it would take me a couple of weeks. I'd get there, but it felt like it would take more time to get to those quality sessions. But including that, just every sporadically, it wasn't every single week. It was almost, I'd say, one a fortnight, I would do a speedier session. And then we've also in the summer now included that as well. Like instead of just doing just 3K, 5K work, I still will do a sort of 10K to even half marathon session in the summer right now. And that has really helped. Again, just doing one sort of over distance session, I'd say every 2 weeks, and keeping that within the schedule, again, has made a big difference. So it meant that I'm not too far away from the speed work, and I'm not too far away from the strength work. And it seems to have now knitted together in the middle. And I think that's a mistake I made in the past. I would go from like just purely endurance, and then in the summer, I'd be hitting my 5 by a K hard and my 2K reps, and it would be all quality. And I would stop doing all the winter strength. So I effectively would just lose that strength. I would speed up a little bit, but I'd lose the strength. Whereas just having it in there every 2 weeks allows me to just keep in touch with it a little bit more. And it seems, that seems to be working. It's been more difficult, certainly in the 1500, because we've moved a little bit further away from that. I haven't quite been able to get down to that 4 minutes, but I still feel confident. I feel right now I could break 4 minutes, which again is just crazy because I never run anything under probably a 64 in training. If I'm doing probably at the end of a session, I might get down to a 64 for 400. But again, I think it's just that strength. It just allows me to keep going.
Lewis is saying thank you. It's a great set of answers. Yes, I think I think there's a book in the offing later on, possibly, with all these words of wisdom. There are a couple of questions that come in on injuries and how to cope with things. One from Sally, who says she remembers racing against you at Grangemouth many years ago at an 800. But when you have a disappointing race or a session, how do you cope with that? Which is sort of tied in with what Matt is asking as well. Like when you have an injury, which you don't have very many of, but how do you cope with it? It's basically how do you cope with disappointments and failure? Not failure, but just how do you prevent it becoming a failure and just go with it?
I'd say for sessions, bouncing back from a bad session, I always try to not think about it too much. And I think that again is where training diaries, like I have a written training diary, but I also have it online as well. So I'm proper anal with regards to having it there. I have it online so that my mum can look back dead easily, but I quite like having one written down too. So for me, I'd say from a bad session, I would always look back and look at what I've done previously or even the week before and sort of reflect on it as like a bigger picture rather than just taking one session in isolation, because you might have had more on at work that day. You might have been more stressed. You might have just had a bad sleep. Like there's so many other factors that come into it on the day. So I'd always say to take a little bit of a step back and look at the month even as a whole. If that whole month has been bad, then that's when maybe you need to start making some sort of change. It could be that the training just isn't quite working for you and you haven't quite got a good format, and maybe you're trying to squeeze in too many runs, or you're trying to do too many double days, or there's different ways that you can play around with training. And certainly for me, like I have found that I'm just not an athlete who copes well with high mileage. I just break down and it just doesn't work for me. So I found that reducing my mileage right down in cross training has allowed me to stay injury free for far longer. And I can get that endurance from my cross training rather than the running. And so it may be that you take a step back and think, well, actually, maybe I need to take an extra recovery day. Maybe I need to stop doing a morning run at that time and try and go in the evening. Or do you mean there might be something there that you can switch around? So I'd say, yeah, if that's only if you're having a session after session after session that's bad. If it's just one bad session, it's really just don't overthink it. Don't look at it too much and look at what you've done previously, because that'll give you some confidence that you've not lost fitness. It's impossible to lose fitness just overnight. I'd say bouncing back from bad competitions is a little bit harder because you feel that you've prepared for that moment. But what I would say is that there's always another competition. I'd say for me in the 5,000 meters, I've been disappointed the last couple of years, to be honest, because it's not quite correlated to where I felt training has been. It's been really, really frustrating. But when you get that one good competition, you forget about all those hardships that you've been through. You forget about the injuries, everything just totally disappears. And it is worth it. It's such a crazy sport to say that it's worth it for just one moment like that, but it truly is. And I think that's why as runners we keep going. We look for the next goal, the next race, and that's the best thing about it. It doesn't matter if that competition is cancelled or postponed, there will be something else for you to focus on. I've had my fair share of injuries, obviously, in the past. Again, I'd say a journal was a really good way of writing down, like for me coming back from surgery when I obviously couldn't walk at all for several months on end, and I was on crutches, and then I had surgery and eventually come back. For me, just being able to see the gradual improvements every day. Like I remember writing down in my diary in 2012 before the Olympics that I could wiggle my big toe. And like when I look at that now, like it's absolutely mad because I was over the moon. Like that was a big achievement. And I was so chuffed because that to me was like my first step back to getting back to running again. So I'd say for injury, just almost champion the small victories that you have and just be happy that you see the progress there, because it's a long journey back from injury. But again, there's no reason why you can't be stronger, fitter and faster once you come out of that from the other side. And as long as you're following gradual progressions, whether that be in your rehab, whether that be implementing a lot more cross training before you get back running, I'd say always be patient and always listen to the people that know what they're talking about, physiotherapists and doctors. I know it's frustrating, but they have a good set plan of what to follow, and if you follow that, it gives you the best chance of getting out the other side of it. So yeah, that would be my advice on those topics.
It's wise words, yes, and it's obvious just listening to you over this last, whatever we've been 50 minutes now, just the passion you bring to your running. And it's just like all us mere mortals, we're all on our own little running journey. Started when we were little, going right through. And it's just interesting just to see how you progressed on your journey and are still progressing on that journey. So I want to thank you for everything. I actually have one more question that's just come in.
Yeah, no worries.
If you're happy to say for that, yes.
Yeah, no worries.
No, it's just a comment from Matthew saying thank you very much. Keeping up the endurance base has helped him too when he's had injuries. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So Georgina, did you want to say something about aftershocks before Eilish has to go? Yes? We'll just hand over to Georgina.
I actually run with the cross trainers a lot. I know that the Aeropex are the pro product and your sort of bestseller. I really enjoy the cross trainers just because I can load music onto them. Which is like one of the best features on there.
Absolutely, yeah. So the cross trainers was relatively new product, came out last year, and I actually use them myself because I don't always want to take my phone with me when I'm running.
Yeah,
I don't want to be interrupted, so they're ideal. So yeah, they're the MP3 option of the range. There's four products, and yeah, I just download it, and you can make folders on there, so you can have like a different upbeat, or you can have slow beat or whatever. So they're very good actually, and they're ideal for any sport, but yeah, it's very good for swimming They're completely waterproof. They're actually IP68 rated, so completely waterproof. So they're good for that too. So yeah, I was just going to explain. You alluded earlier on to the aftershocks. They're being open ear and safe, and that is really one thing that they have strived to sort of push, that they are the sort of race accredited headphones, which I'll come on to. I was just going to say that aftershocks it's been going for 10 years now. They were the pioneers of bone conduction technology, so they've changed the way that people listen to music and listen to things. Actually, they strive to be the best in the best quality in the market, and they leave your eardrums open to your environment, so you can. The key concept is be open and be safe. So, as you alluded to earlier on, bone conduction technology is slightly different. So, instead of using traditional method of speakers, aftershocks have patented transducers, easy for me to say, which send vibrations through your cheekbones and deliver sound to the inner ear instead of the eardrum. So you are literally, if you can see the picture, you wear the earphones just in front of your ears on the cheekbones and not actually in your ears. So hence open ear and safe. So yeah, it says it all really. It means that your ears are unblocked. They're comfortable to wear, the earphones. They're really light. And I'm sure you know that because you've been running with them, but there's lots of features. Motivation is one of them. So when you're running, it's really good to get your music in your ears. If you like doing that, motivate you. There's lots of different ways you can use the earphones. Obviously, you can make and take calls if you wish to. You can swim with them. They're comfortable. They don't move, so people think that they're going to flap about, but I'm sure you can probably explain that they don't. They stay literally over the top of your ears the way they've been designed. So even if you're not running, if you're in the gym or you're doing anything, and the swimming, of course, they don't come off your ears. They stay on, so they're really comfortable to wear.
That's definitely one thing that a lot of people are worried about, I think, is the movement. And I always get asked, like, how fast can you run in them before they move? But this is like a genuine story. There's been times where I've been out for a run, I've come in and I've jumped in the shower and forgot that they're even on my head. Like honestly, Michael's had to be like, what are you doing? But they don't budge at all. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Even my mum hates the in-ear ones because they fall out all the time. And I gave her a pair of aftershocks, and she now runs in music all the time. And she was someone that would never listen to music. She was always old school. I'm just going to go for a run and not listen to anything. And now she swears by them as well. So honestly, I couldn't vouch that they're like the best technology you can have within a headphone for sure.
That is one thing that aftershocks have strived to have the best quality, have the best sports headphones. They've owned that category, hence why they've been accredited. They are really comfortable. I was just going to explain. So they are the official race headphones as well. So because you can literally wear them on the road. It's in the rule book. So there's 4 different products that we've got at the moment. Aeropex, Trexair and Open Move are the Bluetooth models that we talked about. So they can pair with they pair with the devices, so the watches, the phones, the iPads, even some TVs and so on. So they have a multi uses. And then the cross trainers ones that you were talking about, which are the MP3. So you download the information to the music, or you can even listen to talking books and things like that, blogs, anything. You can download anything to those ones. So they're good too. So that's briefly just what I wanted to say about the different products. There's a wealth of information on YouTube, on the website, about all the different products, but it's a relatively easy concept. They connect to devices really quickly. They're so easy to use, honestly. My mum's got them. She uses them for Zoom calls, etc. So they're really quite useful. So there we go.
A little bit about Polar. I'll just kind of whiz through kind of what's been going on over the last year. So we've had lots of product releases, which is really good. Most recently, we've had the Polar Ignite 2 launch, which is our fitness space watch. It has GPS and heart rate built in. Comes in lots of nice colours, and Georgina will be glad to hear that you can control the music all from the watch as well. So if you want to listen to your playlist as you're running, you can do all that, sort all that from the watch. It has lots of smart features to basically give you a personalised workout plan each day. You can monitor your sleep, your steps, your recovery. So yeah, basically, if you're trying to kind of improve and progress and improve your PBs, then that is the watch for you. Then a month before that, back in March, we also had a launch of the Polar Vantage M2, which is our multi-sport running watch, more for the experienced runner. For any of you that are maybe competing at club or regional, maybe park run, and you want to improve your PBs, you have your manual lap times on there, and lots of kind of more elite running features on there where you can track your recovery, where it's looking at we're understanding a little bit about your heart rate, your cardio load, as well as your training load and your kind of perceived load on a day-to-day basis, and it'll kind of understand you over a period of 28 days and give you some guidance on kind of are you good to go today and train really hard, or actually today do you need a bit more recovery, and it might suggest you a stretching session to do. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say thank you so much again, Eilish, for giving up your time. We know you're very busy. You've got obviously a very important date, 3 important dates in Tokyo, semi-final and a final, then another final. It's going to happen. Don't worry. You'll make both those finals.
I hope so. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
I'm sure we'll all be setting our alarms for some stupid o'clock to get up and watch you live whenever it's going to happen. Yeah. So thank you so much.
I think it's an evening, so hopefully it's not too bad for the UK. Hopefully not.
Take it by that. Anyway, so if we can all put a nice virtual round of applause. I think it's a sort of a wave function, or a clap function somewhere on the chat room. Yes, everyone's starting to wave and say thank you. I would just like the very best of luck, and thank you, Michael, for your understanding and letting us have Eilish for an hour tonight. Yes.
He's cooking tea. I feel bad. He's done it all himself. The right hero.
And Eilish, I also, just from Run and Become, just want to say, yeah, fantastic, because Run and Become has been going for so many years, and it's actually now our 30th anniversary of our Edinburgh store. So we wanted to celebrate, and we couldn't celebrate any better than with this event and having you. And Run and Become has just strived to give the best advice and more importantly, inspiration to everybody to be the best runner they can be. And tonight has just been full of inspiration, full of great advice and inspiration. So we really feel it's just such a perfect fit, and so grateful for you joining us and offering your words of wisdom and your inspiration. It's definitely gonna inspire us all. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, congrats on turning 30. It's the best age, of course. Best age.
It'll always be 30. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, thank you so much. It was great to meet you guys.
Okay, Eilish, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck, Eilish.
For joining.
Thanks, Eilish. Take care.
Cheers.
Thank you, everybody.